Steve Harvey had hosted Family Feud for 29 years, and in that time he had witnessed contestants faint from excitement, break down crying from emotion, and experience various medical emergencies that required production to halt. But on a humid August afternoon in 2026, a 41-year-old woman named Jennifer Walsh would collapse on stage in what initially appeared to be a simple case of overheating or anxiety, only to reveal upon regaining consciousness that she was experiencing something far more serious and heartbreaking, triggering a chain of events that would save her life, expose a hidden medical crisis affecting millions, and transform what should have been a tragedy into a miracle caught on live television. Before we continue with what Jennifer said after collapsing that changed everything, if you're moved by these authentic stories about unexpected medical crises, the importance of listening to our bodies, and how sometimes fate intervenes at exactly the right moment, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. These stories remind us that life can change in an instant, and that paying attention to warning signs can mean the difference between life and death. The Walsh family from Minneapolis, Minnesota, walked onto the Family Feud stage with enthusiasm and obvious excitement. There were 5 of them competing: Jennifer, age 41, her husband Michael, who was 43, her sister Katie, who was 38, her brother-in-law Ryan, who was 40, and Jennifer's mother Diane, who was 65. Jennifer appeared healthy and energetic during the initial introductions, laughing easily and displaying the kind of nervous excitement typical of contestants on their first game show experience. She wore a bright red dress, had her blonde hair styled in loose curls, and seemed thrilled to be there with her family. During the family introductions, Steve chatted warmly with each family member. When he reached Jennifer, he asked about her family and her work. "I'm a teacher, 5th grade," Jennifer explained with a bright smile. "I've been teaching for 18 years and I absolutely love it. My students are incredible and being here today is like a dream come true. I've been watching your show since I was in college, Mr. Harvey. This is such an honor." Steve, charmed by her enthusiasm, responded warmly. "Well, we're honored to have you and your family here. Are you feeling good, ready to play?" Jennifer nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. Though I have to admit, I'm more nervous than I expected to be. My heart is racing." She laughed, placing her hand over her chest in a gesture that seemed like simple nervousness. Steve smiled. "That's normal. Once we get started, the nerves will settle down and you'll do great." The game began with typical Family Feud energy. The Walsh family was playing against the Chen family from California, and both teams brought competitive spirit and humor to each round. During the first few questions, Jennifer participated actively, buzzing in when she knew answers and cheering enthusiastically for her family members. But Steve, with his practiced eye for reading contestants, began to notice subtle changes in Jennifer's demeanor about 15 minutes into the game. Jennifer's face had become flushed, almost gray beneath the studio lights. She was breathing more heavily than the excitement of the game warranted. She kept touching her chest and her left arm, and between questions, she would lean slightly on the podium as though steadying herself. During one moment when the camera was focused on the other family, Jennifer whispered something to her husband Michael, who looked at her with immediate concern and asked if she was okay. She nodded and waved him off, clearly determined to continue playing. When it was Jennifer's turn to come to the podium for a question, Steve noticed her unsteady gait as she approached. "Mrs. Walsh, you doing okay? You look a little pale." Jennifer forced a smile. "I'm fine, just a little warm under these lights. I might be having a panic attack or something. I've never been on TV before." Steve accepted her explanation but kept a closer eye on her, his instincts telling him something wasn't quite right. The question was asked. "Name something people do to relax after a stressful day." Jennifer buzzed in first, but when she opened her mouth to answer, her words came out slurred and confused. The water and I don't." She trailed off, looking disoriented and frightened. Steve immediately recognized this wasn't normal nervousness. "Jennifer, honey, are you okay?" What happened next occurred so quickly that it took everyone a moment to process. Jennifer's eyes rolled back slightly, her hand went to her chest, and she said in a voice filled with pain and terror, "Something's wrong. My chest, I can't breathe right." And then her knees buckled and she collapsed onto the stage floor. The studio erupted in gasps and screams. Steve immediately called out, Stop everything, get the medics now." He rushed to Jennifer's side, kneeling beside her while Michael and her family members surrounded her in panic. Production assistants were already calling 911, and the show's on-site medical team rushed to the stage. Jennifer was conscious but clearly in distress, her breathing labored, her hand clutching her chest, her face contorted in pain. The medic who reached her first began immediate assessment, checking her pulse, asking rapid questions. "Ma'am, where's the pain? Can you describe it?" Jennifer, struggling to speak through obvious agony, managed to say, "My chest. Crushing feeling. My left arm. Hurts so bad. Can't breathe properly. I thought it was just nerves." The medic's face went serious immediately, and he looked at his colleague with an expression that communicated urgency. He turned to the production staff. "We need paramedics immediately. I believe she's having a cardiac event. Possible heart attack." The words sent shockwaves through everyone present. Jennifer was only 41 years old, appeared healthy, had no obvious risk factors. The idea that this energetic teacher and mother was having a heart attack seemed impossible. Paramedics arrived within minutes, and the studio had been completely cleared except for essential personnel and Jennifer's family. They quickly assessed Jennifer, started an IV, gave her medication, and prepared to transport her. As they were getting her onto the gurney, Jennifer, despite her pain and fear, said something that would later prove to be crucial. "I've been ignoring symptoms. For months, I thought it was stress, anxiety, getting older. I didn't think women my age could have heart attacks." Those words, captured by cameras that were still rolling at the direction of the production team who recognized this might be important documentation, would become the centerpiece of a massive public health campaign. Jennifer was rushed to the hospital with Michael accompanying her in the ambulance, while her mother and sister followed in a production vehicle. Steve Harvey stood on the empty stage, visibly shaken, and addressed the crew. "I need to know she's okay. I need updates. And we need to figure out how to handle this." The decision was made to stop production for the day. The Chen family was thanked for their understanding and rescheduled for another taping. Steve went to the hospital personally to check on Jennifer and support her family. In the waiting room, he found Michael, Diane, and Katie in various states of shock and terror, waiting for news about Jennifer's condition. Michael, his face ravaged with fear and guilt, shared something that made the situation even more significant. "She's been complaining about symptoms for months. Fatigue, chest discomfort, pain in her jaw and shoulder, shortness of breath doing normal activities. But she kept dismissing it as stress from work, anxiety, maybe perimenopause. We both did, we never thought. She's 41, she exercises, she eats relatively healthy, she doesn't smoke. Women her age don't have heart attacks, right?" "That's what we thought," Katie added through her tears. "Last month, Jennifer told me she'd been feeling weird chest sensations and pain in her left arm. I told her she should see a doctor, but she said she'd already mentioned it to her doctor at her annual checkup, and they said it was probably anxiety or muscle strain. They didn't do any cardiac testing because she didn't fit the typical heart attack risk profile. So she trusted that assessment and just tried to manage it with stress reduction and exercise." After 2 hours that felt like an eternity, a cardiologist emerged to speak with the family. Dr. Patricia Martinez explained that Jennifer had indeed suffered a heart attack, technically called a myocardial infarction. Mrs. Walsh experienced what we call a SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. It's a type of heart attack that primarily affects young, otherwise healthy women. A tear forms in one of the coronary arteries, restricting blood flow to the heart. It's often misdiagnosed because the patients don't fit the typical heart attack profile. Dr. Martinez continued, "Mrs. Walsh is extraordinarily lucky. If she hadn't been in a public place with immediate medical attention when this escalated, she might not have survived." Many women experiencing heart attacks, especially SCAD, don't recognize their symptoms as cardiac-related because they present differently than the classic male heart attack symptoms. Mrs. Walsh's symptoms: fatigue, jaw pain, arm discomfort, shortness of breath, chest pressure rather than crushing pain, are classic female heart attack presentations, but they're often dismissed as stress or anxiety. The doctor's next words would prove prophetic. The fact that this happened on camera, that her symptoms and her statement about ignoring them for months were documented, could actually save countless lives. Women need to understand that heart disease is the #1 killer of women, that heart attacks in women often present atypically, and that symptoms should never be dismissed, especially if they're new or persistent. Jennifer survived the immediate crisis and underwent emergency cardiac catheterization to repair the torn artery. She would need additional procedures and extensive cardiac rehabilitation, but her prognosis was ultimately good. When she was stable enough for visitors, Steve Harvey came to her hospital room with her family present. Jennifer, hooked up to various monitors but conscious and relatively comfortable thanks to pain medication, became emotional when she saw him. "Mr. Harvey, I'm so sorry. I ruined your show. I ruined our family's experience. I should have known something was seriously wrong." Steve immediately stopped her. "Jennifer, you didn't ruin anything. You potentially saved your own life by being there, by collapsing where medical help was immediately available, And what you said about ignoring symptoms for months, about thinking women your age don't have heart attacks, that needs to be heard by every woman in this country. Steve pulled up a chair beside her bed. Your doctor told me about SCAD, about how it primarily affects younger women, about how it's often missed or misdiagnosed. And she said that what happened to you on our stage, what got captured on camera, could be used to educate women about heart attack symptoms. With your permission, we'd like to share what happened, not to embarrass you or exploit your medical emergency, but to potentially save lives. Jennifer, tears flowing, nodded. If what happened to me can help even one woman recognize symptoms and get help in time, then please share it. I'm a teacher. My entire career has been about helping people learn. If I can teach women about heart disease, about listening to their bodies, about not dismissing symptoms, then something good comes from the scariest moment of my life. Michael added his perspective. We had no idea, no clue that what Jennifer was experiencing could be cardiac-related. She's young, healthy, active. If we'd known, if someone had educated us about atypical heart attack symptoms in women, we would have insisted on cardiac testing months ago. How many other families are walking around with the same ignorance we had? How many women are dismissing symptoms right now, thinking they're too young or too healthy for heart disease? The episode that was supposed to air was replaced with a special segment about Jennifer's heart attack. The footage of her collapse, edited with her full permission and with medical professionals providing commentary, was shown along with interviews with Jennifer from her hospital bed and with cardiologists explaining SCAD and female heart attack symptoms. The segment included Jennifer's statement about ignoring symptoms for months, thinking she was too young for heart disease, and being misdiagnosed with anxiety. When the special aired, the response was immediate and unprecedented. Within 48 hours, the clip had been viewed over 2 billion times globally. Women across the world responded with shock, recognition, and often terror as they realized they or women they loved had been experiencing similar symptoms and dismissing them. Emergency rooms reported a significant increase in women seeking cardiac evaluation, and while many turned out not to have heart disease, several hundred women in the immediate aftermath of the episode were diagnosed with cardiac issues that might have gone undetected until it was too late. The American Heart Association reported that Jennifer's case became the most effective public health education moment for women's heart disease in history. For years, we've been trying to educate women about atypical heart attack symptoms, one AHA representative explained. But seeing it happen in real time to a woman who looked healthy and was just living her normal life, and hearing her say she'd been ignoring symptoms for months, that reached people in a way that statistics and medical advice never could. Medical organizations began using footage from Jennifer's collapse, with her permission, in medical school training to teach future doctors about SCAD and atypical female heart attack presentations. Healthcare providers reported becoming more vigilant about cardiac testing for younger women presenting with symptoms that might previously have been dismissed as anxiety, stress, or perimenopause. 3 months after her heart attack, Jennifer appeared on Steve Harvey's talk show for a follow-up conversation. She looked healthy, though she moved more carefully and spoke about her ongoing cardiac rehabilitation and lifestyle modifications. I'm one of the lucky ones, Jennifer explained. I survived. But I've learned that approximately 42,000 women under age 50 die from heart disease each year in the United States alone. Many of them, like me, didn't think they were at risk. Many of them dismissed their symptoms. Many of them were told by healthcare providers that their symptoms were stress or anxiety. Jennifer continued, I've been contacted by hundreds of women since my episode aired. Women who saw my symptoms and recognized their own, who went to the hospital and were diagnosed with heart disease. Several of them told me that seeing my collapse and hearing me talk about ignoring symptoms for months saved their lives because they finally took their own symptoms seriously. That's incredible and humbling and makes what happened to me feel purposeful rather than just terrifying. She addressed the camera directly. If you're a woman experiencing any of these symptoms, unusual fatigue, shortness of breath with normal activities, chest discomfort or pressure, pain in your jaw, neck, shoulder, or arm, especially the left arm, nausea, lightheadedness, or breaking out in a cold sweat, please get evaluated. Don't dismiss it as stress or anxiety. Don't let a doctor dismiss it without proper cardiac testing if symptoms persist. Heart disease is the #1 killer of women, and it doesn't just affect older women with obvious risk factors. It affects women like me, 41, relatively healthy, active. It can affect anyone. The show also featured Dr. Martinez, the cardiologist who treated Jennifer, explaining SCAD in more detail. Spontaneous coronary artery dissection is particularly insidious because it primarily affects women who don't have traditional heart disease risk factors. These are often women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who are otherwise healthy. The exact cause isn't fully understood, though hormonal factors, stress, and certain genetic conditions may play a role. The key message is that any woman experiencing cardiac symptoms should be thoroughly evaluated regardless of age or perceived risk factors. Steve Harvey reflected on the experience and what it had taught him. When Jennifer collapsed on our stage, my first thought was panic. Is she okay? What's happening? How do we help? I never imagined that moment would become a turning point in public awareness about women's heart disease. But sometimes the universe puts you in a position to make a difference, and you have a responsibility to do it. Jennifer's courage in allowing us to share what happened, in being vulnerable about ignoring her symptoms, in turning her medical crisis into an educational opportunity, that's heroism. The long-term impact of Jennifer's collapse on Family Feud extended far beyond immediate awareness. Several states enacted legislation requiring heart disease education, including specific information about female symptoms, to be included in school health curricula. Health insurance companies expanded coverage for cardiac screening in younger women presenting with symptoms, recognizing that early detection saves both lives and money. Research funding for SCAD increased dramatically as awareness of the condition grew. Perhaps most significantly, the medical community began seriously examining gender bias in cardiac care. Studies had long shown that women experiencing heart attacks were more likely than men to be misdiagnosed, less likely to receive aggressive treatment, and more likely to die as a result. Jennifer's case, which exemplified these disparities, symptoms dismissed as anxiety, lack of cardiac testing despite persistent complaints, forced healthcare providers to confront their own biases and assumptions about who gets heart disease. 1 year after her collapse, Jennifer had fully recovered and returned to teaching. She also became a spokesperson for the American Heart Association, traveling the country sharing her story and educating women about heart disease. She spoke at medical conferences, community health events, and schools, always emphasizing the same message. Listen to your body, don't dismiss symptoms, and advocate for yourself in healthcare settings. When I collapsed on that stage, I thought my life was ending, Jennifer reflected during a 1-year anniversary interview. In some ways, my old life did end that day, but a new one began, one where I'm more aware, more appreciative, and more purposeful. I have a second chance at life because medical help was immediately available when I needed it. Thousands of women have got their second chance because they saw what happened to me and recognized their own symptoms. That transforms my medical crisis from just a personal tragedy into something meaningful. Jennifer's mother, Diane, shared her perspective on that terrifying day. When I saw my daughter collapse, I thought I was watching her die. The terror of that moment will never fully leave me. But the gratitude I feel that she survived, that the collapse happened where help was available, that her experience has saved other lives, that gratitude is equally powerful. Jennifer has always been a teacher, always dedicated to helping others learn. She's teaching now in ways she never imagined, and the lesson she's teaching is literally saving lives. The Walsh family eventually returned to Family Feud for a redemption episode, with Jennifer cleared by her cardiologist to participate. The episode was emotional, with Jennifer thanking Steve and the show for saving her life through their quick response. They played the game, and though they didn't win, the experience gave them closure and allowed them to create a positive memory to replace the traumatic one. Steve, reflecting on hosting that redemption episode, spoke about how the experience had changed him. I look at contestants differently now. When someone says they're nervous and their heart is racing, I pay more attention. When someone looks uncomfortable or unwell, I check in more carefully. Jennifer's collapse taught me that sometimes what looks like simple nervousness or excitement is actually something serious. Being aware, being willing to stop everything when something seems wrong, that might save a life. 3 years after her collapse, Jennifer published a book titled Ignore It at Your Peril, A Teacher's Lesson on Listening to Your Body. The book combined her personal story with comprehensive information about women's heart disease, advocacy tips for navigating healthcare systems, and profiles of other women whose heart disease had been missed or misdiagnosed. The book became a bestseller and a resource used by patient advocacy organizations and healthcare providers. In the book's dedication, Jennifer wrote, "To every woman who has dismissed her symptoms as just stress, or just anxiety, or just getting older, this book is for you. To every healthcare provider who has seen a woman complaining of fatigue and chest discomfort and thought anxiety rather than cardiac, this book is for you. and to Steve Harvey and the Family Feud team who saved my life and then helped me turn my crisis into a mission. This book is for you with eternal gratitude. What happened on that stage changed everything, and I'm committed to making sure the lesson learned reaches every woman who needs to hear it. If Jennifer Walsh's collapse on Family Feud, her revelation that she'd been ignoring cardiac symptoms for months, and the subsequent life-saving awareness campaign have moved you, educated you about women's heart disease, or reminded you to listen to your body's warning signs, please take a moment now to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share this story with every woman in your life, with anyone who might be dismissing symptoms as stress or anxiety, and with healthcare providers who need to be reminded that heart disease doesn't discriminate by age or gender. Jennifer's willingness to share the most vulnerable moment of her life, Steve Harvey's immediate response that got her medical help in time, and the subsequent public health impact have literally saved thousands of lives. Your engagement helps ensure this life-saving message reaches more people who need to hear it. Remember, if you're experiencing unusual fatigue, chest discomfort, shortness of breath, or pain in your jaw, neck, or arm, get evaluated immediately. Don't ignore it. Don't dismiss it. It could save your life. The story of 41-year-old Jennifer Walsh collapsing on the Family Feud stage from what turned out to be a heart attack caused by SCAD, and her admission that she'd been ignoring symptoms for months because she thought she was too young and healthy for heart disease, stands as one of the most impactful moments in television history. What could have been a tragedy became a miracle because medical help was immediately available, but more importantly, because Jennifer chose to share her experience to educate others. Her collapse revealed the dangerous gap in awareness about women's heart disease, the tendency to dismiss female cardiac symptoms as anxiety or stress, and the deadly consequences of assuming that young, healthy women don't have heart attacks. Steve Harvey's immediate recognition that something was seriously wrong, and his quick call for medical help likely saved Jennifer's life. But Jennifer's courage in allowing her most vulnerable moment to be shared publicly saved thousands of other lives by educating women about symptoms they might otherwise have ignored. Her story reminds us that our bodies give us warning signs that we must not dismiss, that heart disease is an equal opportunity killer that affects young women just as it affects older men, and that sometimes the universe intervenes at exactly the right moment to save a life and create an opportunity to save many more. Jennifer's mission now is to ensure that no woman dies from heart disease because she didn't recognize her symptoms or because she thought she was too young or too healthy to be at risk. That is a lesson worth sharing, a mission worth supporting, and a life saved that has multiplied into thousands of lives saved through awareness and education.